Before the world knew him as Chumlee, Austin Lee Russell was just a kid from Henderson, Nevada, with a big personality and an even bigger heart. Born on September 8, 1982, Austin grew up alongside Corey Big Hoss Harrison, whose family owned the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas. Their childhood friendship laid the foundation for a future that neither could have predicted. At the age of 21, Austin joined the pawn shop's team, taking on various roles that ranged from behind-the-counter work to testing items and writing tickets for purchases. His natural charisma and unique sense of humor quickly made him a favorite among customers and colleagues alike. It wasn't long before his larger-than-life personality caught the attention of television producers. In 2009, the History Channel launched Pawn Stars, a reality TV series that offered viewers a glimpse into the day-to-day operations of the gold and silver pawn shop. Austin, now known by his nickname Chumlee, became an instant fan favorite. His comedic timing, coupled with his unexpected expertise in areas like pinball machines and vintage video games, added a unique flavor to the show. Chumlee's appeal lay in his authenticity. He wasn't trying to be someone he wasn't. He was simply himself, a fun-loving, slightly quirky guy with a passion for the unusual. This genuine demeanor resonated with audiences, propelling him to stardom and making him one of the most recognizable faces on the show. As Pawn Stars gained popularity, so did Chumlee's fame. He embraced his newfound celebrity status, engaging with fans and even launching his own line of merchandise. Despite the glitz and glamour that came with television fame, Chumlee remained grounded, continuing to work at the pawn shop and maintain his close relationships with the Harrison family. However, with fame came increased scrutiny. While Chumlee's on-screen persona was that of a carefree jokester, off-screen, he faced challenges that would test his resilience and character. The pressures of public life, coupled with personal struggles, began to take a toll, setting the stage for a series of events that would dramatically alter the course of his life. In this section, we've explored Chumlee's humble beginnings and his meteoric rise to fame through Pawn Stars. His journey from a pawn shop employee to a beloved television personality is a testament to the power of authenticity and the unexpected paths life can take. But as we'll see in the next section, behind the laughter and lightheartedness, there were deeper issues brewing that would soon come to forefront. While Chumlee's rise to fame seemed like a dream come true, the reality behind the camera told a more complicated story. Known for his lovable, goofy persona on Pawn Stars, Chumlee brought levity and charm to nearly every episode. But what viewers didn't see was a man dealing with the weight of expectations, personal insecurities, and mounting internal pressures, both physical and emotional. From the beginning, Chumlee was more than just comic relief. His light-hearted nature made the show accessible to a broader audience, offering a break from the tense negotiations and historical trivia that dominated much of the series. But as the episodes went on and the spotlight grew brighter, so did the challenges of maintaining that fun-loving image. The expectations to always be the funny guy started to wear thin. Off-screen, Chumlee struggled with self-image, particularly due to his weight and how it became a running joke, not just among cast members, but fans, too. At one point, Chumlee reportedly weighed over 350 pounds. He often brushed off comments about his size with humor, but in private, those words cut deep. Body image issues aren't often discussed in men, especially those in entertainment. But Chumlee's weight became a topic of internet ridicule and eventually a deeply personal struggle. Rather than addressing the pain, he buried it under a layer of jokes and shrugged shoulders. Fame doesn't come with an instruction manual, and for someone who never aspired to be a celebrity, the sudden attention felt overwhelming. Even more concerning was how the pressure of maintaining a certain public image led him to unhealthy coping mechanisms. Partying, bad eating habits, and questionable choices began to creep into his personal life. Although he stayed professional on camera, behind the scenes he was clearly burning out. Friends and insiders started to notice changes in his mood and energy. He was still smiling on set, but privately, there were signs that Chumlee was headed down a difficult road. One of the more heartbreaking aspects of his early fame was how alone he often felt. Despite being surrounded by cameras and castmates, the loneliness of celebrity hit hard. When the world sees you as a punchline, it's difficult to be vulnerable. Chumlee didn't feel like he had the space to open up or ask for help, which only pushed him further into isolation. There were also rumors, unconfirmed but persistent, about behind-the-scenes tension between Chumlee and some members of the crew. Some speculated that he was growing tired of being the butt of every joke, and that it began to affect his relationship with the other stars, especially as he matured and started thinking more seriously about his future. This section reveals a critical turning point, when the pressure to entertain started conflicting with Chumlee's mental and emotional well-being. The cheerful exterior was cracking, and soon those cracks would split wide open, because as much as fans loved the humor, what came next would be anything but funny, and it was about to get real. By 2016, Chumlee's off-screen issues could no longer stay behind the scenes. What had once been whispers of personal struggles erupted into full-blown headlines that shocked fans and left the future of his career hanging in the balance. It all started with a police investigation that would expose a side of Chumlee no one expected. In March of that year, law enforcement raided Chumlee's Las Vegas home as part of an investigation tied to a reported assault. While the exact details of that initial claim were kept under wraps, and no charges were ultimately filed in connection to it, the raid uncovered something far more serious. Authorities discovered multiple firearms, including some that weren't legally registered in, as well as a significant amount of illegal substances, including marijuana and what appeared to be methamphetamine. There were also materials suggesting possible use or distribution, which only intensified the scrutiny. News of the arrest spread like wildfire. For someone known for being lighthearted and lovable, the idea that Chumlee was caught up in such a serious situation seemed completely out of character. Fans were stunned. The media swarmed, and speculation ran wild. Was this a misunderstanding? A setup? Or had fame and pressure finally caught up with the reality star in the worst way possible? Facing more than a dozen felony counts, including weapon and controlled substance charges, Chumlee's legal future looked grim. But his legal team acted quickly. In May 2016, just a couple of months after the raid, Chumlee agreed to a plea deal that allowed him to avoid jail time. He pled guilty to a felony weapons charge and a misdemeanor for drug possession. The rest of the charges were dropped under the agreement, which included 3 years of probation and mandatory counseling. The plea deal was a lifeline and a turning point. Although the public reaction was mixed, many fans expressed support and hoped this would be the wake-up call Chumlee needed. Still, others saw it as a fall from grace. The goofy, harmless guy from Pawn Stars was now associated with words like raid, charges, and plea deal. It was a difficult shift in public perception, and one that would take years to rebuild. For Chumlee, the aftermath was deeply personal. He largely stayed out of the spotlight for a while, focusing on fulfilling the terms of his probation and trying to get his life back on track. He attended counseling, complied with court requirements, and made public statements that suggested he was taking accountability for his actions. But rebuilding trust, both with fans and with himself, was no easy task. This chapter of his life revealed just how vulnerable he had become. The funny man persona had masked more than just emotional weight. It had real-life risks and decisions that nearly destroyed everything he'd built. The legal troubles weren't just a scandal. They were a symptom of a deeper crisis. And though Chumlee avoided prison, the experience marked him forever. But he wasn't done yet. What came next would show just how far he was willing to go to turn things around. After narrowly escaping prison time in 2016, Chumlee found himself at a crossroads, not just legally, but physically and emotionally. The legal scare had jolted him, but it was his own reflection in the mirror that became the true wake-up call. Weighing in at over 350 pounds, Chumlee knew he was dangerously unhealthy. Years of emotional eating, poor habits, and the strain of fame had taken their toll. If he didn't make serious changes soon, the consequences could be far more tragic than any courtroom verdict. Chumlee's struggle with weight wasn't new. Even during the early seasons of Pawn Stars, fans often joked about his size, sometimes affectionately, sometimes cruelly. The pressure to play the jester only compounded the issue. Food became comfort, a coping mechanism to deal with the stress of public life and the private challenges he couldn't talk about. But after his arrest and legal ordeal, something shifted. He realized he couldn't hide behind humor anymore. His health was spiraling, and this time, there was no punchline, In 2019, Chumlee made the bold decision to undergo gastric sleeve surgery, a procedure that reduces the size of the stomach and limits food intake. It wasn't a quick fix or a vanity move. It was about survival. Before the surgery, he committed to a pre-op weight loss plan to ensure procedure success. He changed his diet, started working with trainers, and even embraced healthier routines like juicing and walking every day. The results were dramatic. Chumlee lost over 160 pounds, transforming his body and, more importantly, his mindset. For the first time in years, he felt like he had control over his life. His confidence grew, clothes fit better, his energy increased, and he started to see himself as more than just a comic sidekick. He was evolving, and fans noticed. Social media lit up with before and after photos, flooded with support and admiration. Chumlee was no longer just surviving, he was thriving. But the journey wasn't just physical. Mentally, Chumlee was still rebuilding. His weight loss brought clarity, but also forced him to confront emotions he'd suppressed for years. Losing weight didn't erase his past mistakes or silence the inner critic. It just gave him the tools to start healing. Counseling, which he'd begun as part of his probation, continued to be part of his wellness plan. He spoke more openly about anxiety, depression, and the pressure of public life, helping fans relate to him on a deeper level. Chumlee also cited the death of his father, who passed away at just 54 from pancreatic cancer, as a major motivator. He didn't want to follow the same path. He wanted to live longer, live better, and prove to himself and the world that he was more than a reality TV punchline. This transformation wasn't just about shedding pounds. It was about reclaiming his life. The legal troubles had nearly broken him, but through pain came purpose. Chumlee's health battle became one of the most inspiring parts of his journey, proof that even when things fall apart, they can still be rebuilt. And he wasn't stopping there. A new chapter was already unfolding, one that would take him beyond the pawn shop walls. With his legal issues behind him and his health vastly improved, Chumlee stood at a defining moment, one that many in his position never reach. For the first time in years, he had clarity. The mistakes, the jokes, the headlines, they were still part of his story, but now they weren't the end of it. What came next wasn't about escaping his past. It was about rewriting his future. And Chumlee was determined to prove that he was more than just a comic relief on a reality show. Reinvention didn't come easy. Fame has a way of freezing people in time, locking them into a version of themselves the public expects. But Chumlee pushed against that mold. He began exploring business ventures outside of Pawn Stars, showing a side of himself few people had seen. One of his most notable moves was opening Chumlee's Candy on the Boulevard, a nostalgic candy store located near the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas. This wasn't just a vanity project. It was a real brick-and-mortar business that reflected his entrepreneurial spirit and personal passion. The candy shop was also symbolic. In many ways, it represented a return to innocence, a place full of childhood joy, laughter, and simpler times. Chumlee wasn't just selling sweets. He was offering a reminder that second chances are possible. Fans loved it. Tourists lined up for photos, autographs, and a taste of something sweet from the guy who had weathered so much and still managed to smile. At the same time, Chumlee returned to Pawn Stars with a renewed sense of purpose. Though still the class clown on screen, there was a sharper edge behind the laughter. He participated more actively in negotiations, shared deeper insights about collectibles, and showed a level of engagement that reflected his growth. He was no longer just a punchline. He was a real part of the business, someone who had earned his place through both hardship and hustle. Behind the scenes, he focused on his mental health, staying consistent with therapy and learning how to manage the emotional weight that fame had once magnified. He spoke candidly in interviews and on social media about his struggles, something few celebrities are willing to do. His honesty struck a chord. For many fans, Chumlee became more than a TV character. He became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that it's never too late to change. He also began reconnecting with fans on a deeper level. Through platforms like Instagram and TikTok, he shared not just promotional content, but pieces of his real life. His meals, his gym routines, his thoughts on growth and redemption. In doing so, he rebuilt a relationship with an audience that once laughed at him but now respected him. This period marked a genuine turning point. Chumlee wasn't running from his past anymore. He was owning it, learning from it, and using it to fuel something better. His story wasn't just about what went wrong. It was about how he made it right. But as uplifting as this chapter was, there remained one final question. Could Chumlee stay on this path, or would the shadows of his past return once again? The answer would be more complicated than anyone expected. Even as Chumlee worked hard to rebuild his life, launching a business, returning to Pawn Stars, and transforming his body, some battles didn't go away, because underneath the success and second chances, there were struggles that never truly left. Chumlee had stepped back into the light, but the shadows still followed. And while the public loved a redemption arc, real life isn't as neat as a television script. Privately, Chumlee continued to wrestle with anxiety and depression. He admitted in interviews that even after losing the weight and avoiding jail, he still felt overwhelmed at times, especially by the pressure to keep everything on track. Fame, after all, doesn't forget. The internet never erases. Every mistake he made was still just one Google search away. And that kind of baggage, no matter how much progress you make, doesn't disappear easily. What made it harder was that so much of his life remained public. Every post, every appearance, every episode aired with the knowledge that judgment could come at any moment. He was always the guy who got arrested, the funny fat one, or the guy who turned around, rarely just Austin. That tension between public persona and private reality created a constant emotional tug-of-war. He was grateful for his fans, but also felt the weight of their expectations. And then there was the issue of relapse, not in the form of drugs or crime, but in self-doubt. Chumlee admitted that staying mentally and physically healthy was a daily commitment. Old habits, old thinking, and old pain didn't vanish just because he'd changed. Every day required focus. Every win had to be earned again. There were setbacks, small missteps, and quiet moments of frustration that never made the headlines. But they were real. In addition, some longtime fans began to question whether Pawn Stars was still the right fit for him. As the show evolved and cast dynamics shifted, especially after the heartbreaking loss of Richard "Old Man" Harrison, many wondered if Chumlee would eventually walk away for good. There were even rumors in 2023 that he might leave the show to pursue his own ventures full-time. While those whispers were never confirmed, they spoke to a larger truth. Chumlee was changing, and not everyone knew how to react to that. And yet, through all of it, Chumlee kept going, quietly, steadily, and without the loud fanfare that used to follow him. He leaned on his inner circle, stayed connected with fans who rooted for him, and kept showing up, whether it was behind the counter of the pawn shop, in the candy store, or just posting something thoughtful on Instagram. This part of the story is harder to tell because it doesn't end with applause or a big reveal. It's about the quiet work, the daily grind of staying better, staying sober, staying sane. Chumlee may never fully escape the labels people gave him, but he's learning to live beyond them, and that may be his most powerful transformation yet. What's next? That's still unfolding. But one thing's clear. Chumlee's story isn't just tragic. It's real, it's ongoing, and it's a reminder that healing doesn't always make headlines, but it matters just the same. Today, Chumlee stands as a complex figure, no longer just a comic sidekick, no longer just a headline. He's a man who stumbled, stood up, and kept walking. And though he's far from perfect, that's exactly what makes his story resonate. Because in a world obsessed with overnight success and clean-cut narratives, Chumlee's journey is messy, raw, and deeply human. What makes his legacy so interesting isn't the fame from Pawn Stars. It's what he's done with that fame when things fell apart. Most reality stars fade away after scandal. Few make it back. Fewer still do the internal work required to actually change. Chumlee didn't just apologize and disappear. He stayed. He faced it. He did the work. And he showed people that mistakes don't have to define you. They can refine you. Through his business ventures, especially the candy shop, Chumlee has crafted a new kind of relationship with his fans. One built on authenticity. He's no longer just a TV personality people laugh at. He's someone they root for, someone they relate to. And that shift has earned him a different kind of respect, one that no viral clip or reality TV moment could ever create. Even within Pawn Stars, his role has evolved. He's no longer just a comic relief tossed into goofy segments. Over time, he's become a real contributor to the show's success, offering insights on pop culture items, memorabilia, and modern collectibles. He still brings humor, but there's more balance now, a sense that he's grown into someone with knowledge and perspective. The jokes haven't disappeared, but the punchline isn't always at his expense anymore. What's more, Chumlee has quietly become a mental health advocate, not through loud speeches or viral campaigns, but by showing up, telling the truth, and not pretending to have it all figured out. His openness about therapy, anxiety, weight struggles, and self-worth has helped shatter the one-dimensional image people had of him for years. In doing so, he's created space for others to acknowledge their own pain without shame. Still, Chumlee's legacy isn't fully written. There are still chapters ahead, maybe in business, maybe in media, or maybe in something entirely unexpected. He's talked in interviews about wanting to mentor young people, share what he's learned, and maybe even step behind a camera one day to help others tell their stories. Wherever he ends up, one thing's clear. He's no longer running from who he was. He's using it to shape who he's becoming. And maybe that's the most powerful part of his story. Not the fame, not the fall, but the quiet, steady rebuild. Chumlee's legacy won't be about being the star of a reality show. It'll be about what he did when the cameras weren't rolling, when it was just him, his regrets, and the choice to do better. That's the version of Chumlee that matters, and it's one fans will never forget. Chumlee's journey has been anything but ordinary. From a lovable goof on reality TV to a man who's faced down legal chaos, battled his own health, and come out the other side more self-aware and grounded than ever. His story is a rare kind of redemption, not the kind that's neat or polished, but the kind that's real and ongoing. He's proof that it's never too late to change, that second chances are earned, not given, and that even when the world writes you off, your next chapter is still yours to write. If this story gave you a new perspective on Chumlee, or reminded you that everyone's fighting battles behind the scenes, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want more deep dives into the untold sides of your favorite public figures, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.